Hi, I'm Ruby Tailfeathers from Kainai High School. I'm the lead teacher for the Connections program, and 7 students from Kainai High School were involved in the Connections program in the fall of 2013, continuing on into the new year of 2014.
There's still one Tim Eagle speaker. Connections is a high school multicultural leadership program.
Okay, my name is Charity Yellowhorn, and the Connections program focuses on the multicultural nature of the Canadian society and the environment.
Oki ni Stuni Daniko Inaka Mountain Horse. The program fosters cross-cultural and understanding. It also focuses on developing student leadership skills, and it provides a chance to explore how culture and environment are linked. So the program consists of students doing some preparation and post-trip, as well as attending a 4-day on-site program at Camp Kiwanis just west of Calgary.
Oki Idanigo Jonathan Red Crane. It is a leadership and diversity education, enrichment, and opportunity for high school students.
Okay, Oki Nadaniko McKinley Russell. What you're about to see is our final project on the Blackfoot World view on different issues.
7 students from KHS have agreed to make a video on a Blackfoot worldview. We will then present this video along with guest speakers and students to get feedback using a questionnaire.
Okay, Chelsea. Mr. Danaka Inaka. As a Blackfoot person, can you comment on our people's world point of view on racism or other cultures in the world, for example, for colors on the vestibule?
Well, racism to me is like somebody judging someone on the color of their skin. And sometimes when people are racist towards a culture, especially mine, they don't really know what we're all about and what we're capable of. And to me, I find that because they don't know and they don't go into our rituals or anything, they assume that we're bad. And we're not. So my perception on it is that people need to look forward more into someone else's culture before they start judging them based on their skin color or the way they are and they look and the way they pray, you know. Their language is different. That's how they communicate. Their rituals is how they communicate also. So.
And what are your perspectives on the 4 colors on the medicine wheel?
The 4 colors on the medicine wheel represent each skin color of people, and it's like the circle has this colors in there. It means it's bringing all the races to one. So we're all one. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. We're all the same. At the end of the day, we're all this people.
Okay, my name is Charity Yellowhorn. As a Blackfoot person, can you comment on our people's viewpoint on the handicapped people?
Well, us Blackfoot people, we've always been very accepting of handicapped people. We don't shun them. We don't, discourage them. We always try to help them and take care of them because in our culture, we all would take care of one another. And when somebody is like that, they're just extra special to us. We just take extra care of them. And, back in the day, as a tribe, we would all pitch in to take care of that person. And it's nothing bad if he's handicapped or if she's handicapped. It just means that there's something special. People like that are like a blessing to your family. They're like medicine. So you take them in very good hands.
Okay, Chelsea Nadaniko McKinley. As a Blackfoot person, can you comment on our people's viewpoint on people who are homosexual?
Well, us as Blackfoot people, we're very accepting in anything. And we accept people who are two-spirited. We call them two-spirited because they have the abilities of a man and abilities of a woman. They can act as a man and they can act as a woman. So we've always been very accepting of that because it's like a blessing when you have somebody like that.
P. Chelsea Nadanico Jonathan Red Crane. As a Blackfoot person, can you comment on our people's viewpoint on the environment in our land?
Well, us as Native people, as Aboriginals, we were created to be close with the environment. We, as Mother Earth, close with her, because a lot of our sources come from Mother Earth, and for us as Blackfeet people, we have always been appreciative of that. We've never taken as much as we've always taken just as much as we needed. We never took more than what we needed. We would give tobaccos and we'd pray on what we take, and thank the Creator. If we were to kill buffalo, we'd thank them, we'd eat everything of it, use everything of it. And nowadays it just seems like everybody's just taking our land and our environment for granted.
Okay, Isto ni Taniko, Sterling Blackwater. I'm in grade 12 at Kainai High School.
As a Blackfoot person, can you comment on our people's viewpoint on racism, on other cultures in the world, for example, the 4-killer wheels on the medicine wheel?
Yeah, about racism, I don't know. It's a new thing to a lot of First Nations, especially like as a whole people. It was only introduced like a couple of centuries ago, and we're still facing it all over the world. And it's a trust thing. It's like I don't know. You have to look at like all the major companies and all the leaders that are making all these big decisions. And the handicap, well, yeah, the disabled and mentally disabled is they're all a family. We're all family, and we pray for each other. But like the rise on FASD and like it's the responsibility of the individuals themselves, and we're only here to teach, and like the people who listen, that's their responsibility. And a lot of our values, that's like one of the things is that the elders and the younger people are supposed to be really close, but I don't know, there's not that connection anymore, and lots of people are drinking and like pregnant women, and I don't know. It's just good that they have most of their connections still, and like in schools they're all together and they're around a good friendly environment and learning stuff like that.
And your views on people who are homosexual?
Oh yeah, that's twin-spirited or two-spirited. Yeah, that's I know a lot of people who are two-spirited, and they're not discriminated against because they're respected, because they're I don't know. Another couple of elders have told me that they know what's wrong and what's right, and like in the contrast of like male and female, and they have lots of respect for both, like sexes, and that's why they're like they have a lot of knowledge too. I know a lot of elders that respect the two-spirited people, and they're just the same.
In the environment in our land?
Yeah, the white paper. Lots of young people should get themselves educated on the white paper and like all the treaty rights, and especially not just Treaty 7, but all the other treaty rights. And there's a whole bunch of stuff to do with the pipelines. Like no one asked my permission or consulted any of our leaders or any of their youth, like if what we felt of like the pipelines and all that stuff. And the environment is a really big, it's like a treasure for all Native people, and none of them are consulted across any, they're not consulted by any of these major oil and gas, like natural gas companies, not even infrastructure. And like when we were put on these reserves, now they want to take our rights away, like our school rights and all this, and that's trust has fall back into that racism thing. It's if they could just take the time to fully understand where we come from and where we sit. Like this is not just like a monopoly. It's not like a piece of land that you can sell. We're thinking about the future, and the on the land, like the effects that's gonna have on the the elements, water, air, earth, fire, all of those elements fall into the environment, and like we're not even getting recognized, let alone like asked about our opinions and thoughts. Like this is my first time getting asked my opinions and thoughts about like environment wise, and I don't know, I could keep going on for days, but it's just has to do with trust. And if none of us are consulted, then how are we supposed to trust, right?
Okay, Mr. Daniko Sixkaki, Nitapin Shkas and Beverly Hungry Wolf. Nitsaganaki.
As a Blackfoot person, can you comment on our people's viewpoint on racism?
Aksapianstut. I feel that our people have become very racist compared to the old days. Our modern young people, I guess you call it reverse racism. But in the old days, we were very into adapting to having new people come into our tribe. There's lots of people that were adopted into the tribe, and there wasn't much happening. But since I really feel that the younger people are more racist than the older people because of all the impact of colonization and all that, and we're very good at reverse racism. Handicapped people were not really considered handicapped in the old days. They were very part of our everyday life. We never left our handicapped people or just put them in a place. They were very involved in everyday life. They went to powwows. They went everywhere the parents went, and it was usually the grandparents or a grandaunt will take over the care of a handicapped person, leaving the parents free to do the work, because it was a lot of work to do your everyday things. But if you had a handicapped child on top of that, so usually an older relative would take the handicapped person and raise that person. They'll just be in charge of one child, and the parent would have the rest of the children. But handicapped people were a big part of our everyday life. They weren't just hidden away or anything like that. We tried to give them a good quality of life. For our old people, homosexual people were rather sacred. Um, I've always talked about this. They didn't have uh, you didn't spoil the spirit of a person. What you wanted to do was make sure the spirit of a person was intact. And if you tried to, like what I was told about gay people, if a father saw gay tendencies in his son, they would try to marry them off. But if that didn't work, they were allowed to live their lives the way they wanted to. But gay people were not looked down upon. We said they were sacred because they knew both ways. They knew the feelings of a female, but they had the body of a man, or they knew the feelings of a man and they had the body of a woman. So it was and then we had people that were hermaphrodites. You couldn't tell which sex they belonged to because, their physical makeup didn't allow for, we couldn't say, okay, this is definitely a female. I wanted to share a story with you. We brought my grandparents to New York, and we were waiting to get on a subway, and we were all sitting on a bench, and this black gay guy came walking past us. He was so beautifully dressed. And when he walked by, the black woman that was sitting next to me said, "Hey, that's a faggot." She leaned over and told my grandmother, Paula Weaselhead, "That's a faggot." And my grandmother said, "Tsawane." And I told him, "Awani awakishkase." So I named a gay person from our community. And my grandma just said, "Oh," and that was the end of it. It wasn't a big thing for her. It was just a gay person. But this black lady was really upset about this gay person and made sure that us sitting on the bench knew. But for my grandma, it was, so he's gay. Well, for us, the environment was a very, very sacred thing. Like, we don't look at the earth as a pile of dirt. It's our mother, the earth mother. And everything that's on the earth, we even have a bundle, the beaver bundle. The beaver bundle was given to this man because he just went around killing animals indiscriminately. So the beavers took his woman down and they invited all the animals, and they were given the job of making sure that the animals were safe. We were given things, we were told things to hold sacred. Like for us, the stars are our relatives. Some of our relatives went up into the sky. Milchbukwigs. Those were the children. But we have a lot of other stories where the stars, we have a very sacred relationship with them. The trees, the plants, the rocks, they're all related to us. They're all beings. They're not just inanimate objects, like non-native people think, oh, that's just a rock. But to me, that rock could be very sacred. And we have our sacred buffalo stones, and we have our sacred seashells that the Ninamskeks wear to show that they're medicine pipe keepers. So all these things were very sacred to us. Our whole universe was sacred to us. Everything that we needed. We didn't need money. All we needed was a good bow and arrow, good feet to go and pick our berries, make sure we were even taught how to use those things. And with the coming of the non-natives, this was all destroyed because their way of thinking is to take, but not to give back. They take and take, but they don't give back. And our way of thinking is if you take, you give something back. And that was our relationship with our environment, our land, our sky, and was to keep it holy and sacred.
Okay, my English name is Narcissus Blood, and I work at Red Crow College. Hun.
Okay, Narcissus. As a black person, can you comment on our people's point of view on racism or other cultures in the world? For example, the 4 colors on the medicine wheel.
Racism is a topic that people tend to shy away from talking about, and I'm glad you're making it a part of this project. A person that we just buried, his name was Nelson Mandela. And one of the things he said is that racism is learned. It's a learned behavior. Where does it come from? Where do we learn it? Well, unfortunately, we learn it from our parents. And we have to be very careful of it because when we're on the receiving end of racism, it's not nice, right? And it still exists. It exists in our community. I think all of us can talk about an experience of being treated disrespectfully just because of who we are as Nitsitapi in this community. If you look at our history, you see that it is just all about racism. I went to the school that I teach at Red Crow College. The whole residential school experience is racism. But we also have to be careful too that one of the reactions, one of the things that's very tempting to do, and I say that from experience, is when you're at the receiving end of racism is you can learn it too, or you can retaliate with racism. And when you become racist, then you've become less of a person. Racism is what? Hatred. Okay? It is ignorance. And one of the students that we interviewed just said, it's when people don't know us. So that's what ignorance is. When President Obama was being interviewed by a guy who I consider racist, he works for Fox News. His name was Bill O'Reilly. And towards the end of the interview, he told the president, you know, Mr. President, a lot of people hate you. See, he didn't want to use the word racism, but he used what it was. You know, a lot of people hate you. How do you respond to that? And I really like what the president said. He said, a lot of these folks that hate me don't know me. If these people would just get a chance to sit down with me, have coffee with me, or have lunch with me, they'll get to know me. And it'll get rid of that hatred. Eh? But sometimes we hang on to that. Eh? That's where damage is done to the person that harbors hatred. Eh? Because you're carrying on something very destructive. And as Beverly said, we as Nitsitapi, that's not part of us. And when we become racist, then we become less of a Nitsitapi than we could be. Eh? And
the view on handicapped people?
handicapped people. This is my second language that I'm talking. Eh? So the word handicap never became part of my experience till very recent, till a later part in my life. It was introduced, and handicap suggests special needs. One of the people that I really looked up to was my uncle. His name was George Heavyhead. He had spinal meningitis when he was born, and that affected his hearing. And I never considered him handicapped until I was told he was handicapped in English. But my uncle took care of us. He had horses. He always had money. When I was going to University of Lethbridge and I needed money as a student, I'd go to him. And you know what? He always had money. He worked. Eh? And he wasn't treated any differently in our community. So some of the more recent programs that have been brought into our community, when we move away from who we are, then handicap becomes kind of what it is today. It's not that we ignore it, it's something that we need to look at it. Because we live very busy lives, and sometimes there's funding that's available, but you have to then come up with a definition of what it is to be handicapped. And some of the handicaps that we have today are preventable. Eh? I have high blood pressure. I'll use myself as an example. I don't have 2 front teeth. I've got a bad knee. I got to watch what I eat. Then I won't have that high blood pressure. I won't be obese. And maybe I won't have arthritic knee. Some of it is just unpreventable. I mean, it just happens. We have fetal alcohol syndrome babies. That's totally preventable. And so some of those are related to behavior, sometimes through whatever circumstances you're born into a handicap situation, whether it's MS or all some other diseases that come on later in life. So yeah, handicap is an issue that we need to be sensitive about, but we need to use our values in our community, right? It's like racism, my views aren't, were somewhat influenced by the school I went to. Because prior to that, people are people. That's what we're taught. And at some point, through a belief system or what have you, people thought that being gay was, that there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong. I grew up at a time, and people older than me, when somebody thought that if you're left-handed, there's something wrong with you. People were actually punished for being left-handed, and it happened at these schools. Again, thinking that there's something wrong with somebody that's gay is a learned behavior. In our ways and who we are, we treat people as people. And I was very lucky I was brought up in our language. But I know sometimes that some of that is also ignorance by our own people. Gay people in our community, as far as I can tell, have been, for the most part, accepted. People have been elected who were gay. They were our leaders. People that were gay actually joined the Women's Society. People that are gay work in very prominent positions in our community. And they are first and foremost people. Those are my views on it. One of the things that I know our elders can collectively say to the newcomers is, we told you so. We told you so. Today we're faced with a very critical issue, and it's the best equalizer that you could ever have, and that's the environment. It flooded in downtown Calgary. It didn't matter how rich or poor you were affected. Okay? The environment for us, and again, we weren't environmentalists in this word that I'm using, but if you defined it, we always have been. Istipatapio. That Blackfoot word, istipatapio, is it gives us life. We're sitting in here, I'm breathing, you're nodding in agreement, you're smiling. We're alive, right? That's what istipatapio means, What gives us life? What gives us life? What we drink, what we eat, what we breathe. And you know what? They're in ceremonies. If you go to the transfer this past summer, you see some of it. Those things that give us life, those elements that give us life, we honor and respect it. Like water. How long can you go without water? Not very long. And we live in a very pristine area. These are the headwaters of this continent. We live in a very unique situation. It's called the crown of the continent. It's in Mount Divide, just in what is now Montana. That border was very recent. But at that mountain, there's a three-way divide. The water that flows from that divide, some of it from the Milk River south, that water falls, empties into the Gulf of Mexico. Anything that drains, that comes from the mountains on this side of the ridge, the Milk River Ridge there, like the St. Mary's Lake, or the St. Mary's River that runs by us. Anything on this side empties into the Hudson Bay, right? Did you know that? All the drainage system on this side empties into the Hudson Bay. On that side of that divide, everything empties into the Pacific Ocean. Water. We had a bundle. You could call it an environmental bundle. It's called the Beaver Bundle. Beverly talked about it. And you know what the priests targeted first to get rid of in our community? It was the beaver bundles. Why did they try and get rid of them? Because they wanted to assimilate us. They wanted us to take another language that wasn't ours but theirs. And as Nitsitapi, the land and the environment make us who we are. If you ever go to a ceremony, we acknowledge our non-human relations. Right? Gawa pumahagangs, that's the four-legged. Payutags are the birds. When we cross a water or river, we always make an offering for the Suyita peaks. Kakatus, it's the stars. We are Nitsitapi because of the land we are on. And the land nurtures us. The Blackfoot word for it is kitooks. The land provides for us much like a mother provides for us. They nurture us. So, as Nitsitapi, what can we do today to educate the newcomers? And they just got here very, very recently. 200 years is nothing in Blackfoot time. We've been here for thousands and thousands of years. And we predate Christianity. We predate the Great Pyramids. We predate the Roman Empire. We predate the Stonehenge and people. And what is it that about the Blackfoot that existed that long? It's because we lived in a sustainable way.